In this week's episode, we are hunting in Huntington, visiting one of the last remaining game stores in the whole of the UK, and finally we are heading to the absolutely incredible Forbidden Planet in the heart of London.
Game Pickups! Building a game room! Run tricks! Live game hunting! Oh yeah!
Again folks, welcome back to another live game hunting episode. And that's right, this time we are on the road again, this time hunting in Huntington, heading to one of the last remaining game stores in the UK, by which I mean a game store not inside a Sports Direct, and also then heading to the absolutely amazing Forbidden Planet in London. Now, don't worry, I didn't just head to these locations just for this video. If you've seen my previous Crazy World of CX, you'll know I headed to the Huntington store. And spoiler alert, in next week's episode of the Crazy World of CX, I'll be heading to tons of CX stores in central London. So stay tuned for those episodes. Just before we hit the road to Huntington, I want to remind you folks, if you enjoyed this video, to hit that like button and subscribe, as I put new videos out every Saturday live at 5, as well as bonus content for the week, and I really want you folks along for the ride. Now, let's get hunting in Huntington. We are starting off this week hunting in Huntington, a small market town in Suffolk. And the thing is about some of these small market towns, you may argue there's nowhere to hunt. But check out this concentration of charity shops in this small town. And all of these are just a short walk apart. I know a lot of people don't seem to have any luck in charity shops, but with this many shops, hopefully we find something today. First shop then, and a staple of any charity shop, the box of DVDs. And the thing is, with these massive boxes of DVDs, you just have to jump in and get your hands dirty, because sometimes you can find something good in here that you can trade into CX for in-store credit. Sadly, this Beijing Olympics game probably isn't going to break the bank, and it is already in my collection, so I did pass on this one. But I think DVDs were £5 for £1, so if I could find anything here that was worth trading in, it would be absolute cheap profit. But sadly, it isn't looking like there's going to be much here at the moment, and this is a thing with a lot of these charity shops. A lot of these boxes of DVDs are absolutely full of garbage, but the thing is, you have to hunt for gems. Sadly, this is the state of the majority of charity shops around the UK. Walls and walls of DVDs that are essentially worthless, but it's that one find that can change your entire day. And one of the best things to keep a lookout for is normally box sets. So this Spider-Man box set would trade in for £2, but I think they were asking £2 on this, so I did pass on it. It's a £5 DVD in CX, so if you were looking to buy it, finding a charity shop would be a really good way to pick it up. But again, unfortunately, nothing hiding in this DVD pile. The thing is though, I am nothing but persistent. Whenever I go into a brand new charity shop, I will still hunt for that wall of DVDs, because at the end of the day, that's probably going to be hiding any DVDs, games, and the easiest stuff to trade in for credit at CX. And it's actually surprising how often they'll have games just littered amongst the DVDs, and these are just all on top. Nothing too exciting like Connect Sports, not a pretty fun game. Defiance, unfortunately a dead MMO, which I really enjoyed, and I really enjoyed the TV show. I think this show and the game working alongside was really good. Sega Superstar Tennis, I'm sure this used to trade in for a little bit more, but I guess the Sonic bubble has burst a little bit. And this game, Gunslinger for the Kinect, which also has Fruit Ninja, which is the only way I believe to get that physically on the Xbox 360. The Xbox Live Arcade discs are always really good, because again, these are games you can no longer buy physically. So these arcade packs are a really good way to play some of these games. And the Skylanders games, some of these are worth a large amount of money, but I think it's the ones on the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. But here is something I'm definitely going to pick up. The first few seasons of the Transformers cartoon for £1, sealed, is a great find to start the day. Another charity shop, and heading to the back here to the electronics section. Now, I don't really normally find much in these electronics sections, but I always seem to see steering wheels for the older consoles. This one was for the PlayStation 2 and looked like a pretty decent steering wheel, but these are one of the difficult things to think about picking up, as they take up too much space, and for £15 I did pass on this one. But let me know if you collect these steering wheels in the comments down below. And also, if you've ever found one of these 401 consoles that isn't total garbage. I know most of these are just from Wish.com and are pretty pointless. I do like some of these old school kind of PC controllers, but I don't know if a lot of these would work with more modern PCs, or if any of these are actually any good. So again, let me know the best PC controller in the comments down below. I think a lot of people normally just pass these Oxfam bookshops by, but can I find anything inside?
Let's find out. Is it books?
So even though this was primarily a bookshop, there was some video games hiding at the back. We got some PlayStation 2, some OG Xbox, and even some Xbox One. And these are the kind of places where you never know if you're going to find something hidden in the back, because most people think it's mainly a bookshop. Maybe they're going to sleep and you might find something hidden in this very small video game section. Back to the standard charity shops and back to the classic wall of DVDs, and this shop actually had some really good Blu-rays. If I was looking to add these to the collection, it was a really good selection of films in here, including the absolutely incredible John Wick. I do think the charity shops are a great place to pick up films just to watch or to add to the collection. So also, of course, when we are looking through these sections, we are looking for hidden video games. They all seem to be on the top of the shelf, and I've never seen this video game before. I know the Soul Calibur series is a really big series. I did check on the CX app because I've never seen this one, and normally if it's an Xbox 360 game I've never seen before, it could be quite valuable. Sadly, this one was a little bit overpriced, so I did leave it behind, but it's definitely a game now on my want list. Great series. Next shop, and a very small pile of Xbox 360 games here. A little bit overpriced personally, I think, and nothing really worth picking up here, either to add to the collection I don't already have or to trade in. I do think sometimes charity shops do charge a little bit too much on these games, especially with some of these games you can pick up for 50p or £1 in CX. I did check that Home Alone box set. It was a little bit overpriced as well, because DVD box sets are one of the best things to trade into CX. But remember, they no longer take this Game of the Year edition of Call of Duty 4, unfortunately. Now, it has been a while since I've seen one of these, a standalone game store. Not a game store within another store, an actual game store of its own. And these are becoming harder and harder to find. So let's see if we can find some bargains in here. Now, I would say game stores these days, about 50% games and 50% figures. Isn't a bad thing in my eyes, but let's see what we can find. If you are a Star Wars figure collector, you need to head to Game at the moment. They have some absolute bargains in here, as well as the Black Series stuff. They have these kind of smaller, kind of digipacked figures as such. These are super cool, and these are a really good deal. Like, a lot of these are like £30 to £40 online, and most of these are £15 in store in game at the moment. The thing is, you just never know which ones you're going to have in your store. I think these are also being sold through Sports Direct, so head down to Game if you're a Star Wars figure collector, and hopefully you can grab yourself a bit of a bargain. I was really drawn towards these Masters of the Universe Revelation figures, and at $9.98 they're actually a really good price. I would have loved to have picked up this absolutely massive Castle Grayskull. I have no idea where I'd put it, and I don't really know the pricing of these. Like, it seemed quite expensive, but I have no idea. So let me know if you'd have picked that up in the comments down below. I do quite like these retro figures, but it's just trying not to get into collecting another figure line, even if it were a fiver. When it comes to grabbing a bargain in game, the very best way to get that bargain is the 3 for 2 offer. And let's see how low we can go for free Xbox One games. So remember, you pay for the 2 most expensive games, so let's try and find some real bargains. I really think now is a great time to pick up some cheap games for the Xbox, and if you can pick them up cheap, it's worth having a go on some titles that you might not know too much about. Some scanning here for anything I kind of don't recognise, anything I've never seen before, and I pull this game out, Torment Day 1 edition. I don't know, but $1.99, I'll quite happily take a risk on that one. Down here, let's keep going. So we're at $1.99 at the moment. Metal Gear Survives, I'm not even paying £5 for that. Mighty Number 9 for $2.99. Yes, it might be one of the least popular kind of Mega Man spin-off games, but this is a game I've been looking for a long while. Onrush, an absolutely fantastic racing game, and I think a game which is really overlooked. So we've managed to pick up 3 games there, and I think we've got them for just over £5, which is an absolute bargain. I'm just checking there's nothing else we've missed here, but no, I think we have our 3 games here. So 3 games for just under £6, absolute bargain. Great way to build a collection. I think a lot of people pass up cash converters when they're looking to buy retro and modern games. Yes, sometimes they are overpriced, but sometimes you can catch them sleeping and get an absolute bargain, even if more often than not they are overpriced. I think for this Xbox, £189 is a little bit too much, but let's head inside and see what we can find. And straight away, what can we see here? Some N64 games, and these are really, really good prices, like cheaper than CX, which is quite surprising, but it does go to show you can get a bargain in cash converters. Especially when it comes to more modern games, they're a couple of years older. So the brand new titles are normally quite expensive, but games here like Frank's Big Package for $5.99 is a really good deal. I wish I'd kind of picked this one up, but I did pass it, so I couldn't remember if I already had it in a collection and couldn't check in here. But yeah, there is some really good deals in here. Some of the games are overpriced, but it's just going through and finding if you can find something at a good deal. Like $3.99 for Thief isn't bad, but it isn't incredible. I do often find their Switch games are quite overpriced, and sometimes as well when you go to the more older consoles you can get a better deal, just because I think at the moment a lot of these cash converter stores are trying to get rid of their Wii games, their Xbox 360 games, even their Mega Drive games. You can get quite a good deal, but a lot of the times they will just charge the exact price on this. But sadly today there was nothing but filler titles for the older consoles, but you never know. Our final stop this time in Huntington was this charity shop, which was actually open. It didn't really look open. It actually looked a little bit abandoned. But inside there were some really cool retro TVs, as well as a really small, if not slightly overpriced, retro game section. Sadly, nothing to write home about here today, but it was definitely worth hunting in Huntington. It is a great little town, especially if you want somewhere to hunt quickly if you're close to the area. All the charity shops were super close together. I think we went through all of these charity shops in about an hour and a half, and it was an absolute pleasure to find a physical game store. Next, we're down to London to Forbidden Planet. Here we are then in central London at Forbidden Planet, which I think, to my knowledge, is the biggest Forbidden Planet shop in the entire world. And full disclaimer, this is just a Google image of the store, as it was absolutely packed. I was shopping in London all day, but this store was busier than anywhere we went. It was absolutely rammed. I've tried to get some footage while we're here, because as soon as you enter Forbidden Planet, you can see all these absolutely amazing Star Wars items. There is some absolute god tier items in this store. If I had all the money in the world, this is what the game store would look like. Just glass cabinets absolutely full of these incredible Star Wars figures. Now these are expensive, but they are so lifelike, and these are high-end, I wouldn't even say toys anymore. These are collectibles, and these things are absolutely beautiful. But of course, it wasn't just Star Wars. They had other figures as well. Like, check out this Billy Butcher from The Boys. Finally, a Boys figure that actually looks like the character it's meant to be. This thing looked absolutely incredible. Obviously, I had an absolutely incredible price tag as well. Diabolical. If you didn't know by now, one of my favourite toy lines to collect is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, especially anything that looks retro, and these kind of turtle shell stash figures are super duper cool. Spoiler alert, I actually pre-ordered the entire series of these and bought them all in one go, but it's really cool to see them here. They are really nice figures and really remind me of that 80s retro feel. Same as these new big turtles. Like, I never had these back in the day, but I do remember seeing these on the shelves, like the kind of giant turtles. They're, for me, a little bit big, and I think they take up a lot of shelf space, which I'd rather use for some smaller figures, but as large figures go, they were pretty cool and very retro. Speaking of retro, here we have the NECA figures for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. And whilst I do really like the Turtles NECA figures, I kind of prefer the cartoon-based ones. But these movie-based ones are really nice. They are so, like, realistic to the actual characters in the film. And more of a fantastical one, I really like these Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles X Monsters figures. These are super cool as well. Some really interesting takes on these classic figures. First and foremost, when it comes to collecting TMNT figures, I love the NECA figures, but these Playmate figures have really turned it up recently. Like, these are super cool. I really like the packaging, I like the look of the figures. They are just really realistic to the cartoon series, and definitely, if I could get some of these Playmates figures at a cheaper price, I'd definitely be looking to add them to the collection. Same as these figures here, which are based on the original Eastman and Laird's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon. Again, these are quite expensive, but these are such good likenesses and are really cool figures. I like the kind of artwork on the boxes. I like the way the figures look. I'm just not sold on the price. I know these toys can get expensive, but for me, these are a little too expensive. Now, Forbidden Planet had more Star Wars toys than you could shake a lightsaber at, but this was the one that really stuck out for me. It's a Revel model kit of Grogu in his kind of travel egg. Absolutely fantastic figure, like a kind of model kit I never knew I needed. I'd love to have got more kind of footage of the other Star Wars figures in here, but that section was absolutely rammed. But they had the biggest selection of retro and Black Series Star Wars figures I've ever seen. If you're a Star Wars fan, get to Forbidden Planet. Now, there's no denying these Marvel statues are super cool. They are quite pricey, but and it is a little bit of a but. If you go into your local B&M store, they do have some of these in there. So in my local B&M, I've seen Thor, I've seen Spider-Man, I've seen Hawkeye. So if you're on the lookout for these, check out your local B&M stores. You might be able to grab a bargain. Speaking of statues, they also had these super cool Witcher statues. They had both statues from The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt and statues from the Netflix series. Now, I actually don't mind the Netflix series. I know a lot of people absolutely hate it. Obviously, I kind of prefer the game-based figures, but any Witcher figure that I can get is going to look super cool in the games room, and these were very tempting, especially this Last of Us one. When it comes to Forbidden Planet, sometimes in the clearance section you can get some absolute bargains. So this was reduced, this Witcher figure. It was not really reduced too much. It had a little bit of box damage, so I did decide to pass on it. And sadly this time I didn't manage to find anything in this reduced section. But stick around till later for more bargains. Just a quick heads up, in this next section there is some very slight spoilers for the new Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse movie. So if you don't want to see some of the characters in that upcoming Spider-Man movie, skip ahead about 30 seconds. Here we have some of the brand new figures then for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And if you look on the back of these, it literally shows some of the main characters and does kind of ruin some of the surprise of some of the people who are going to make an appearance in this film. But there is only one of these figures that I absolutely need for the collection. It was in a separate section of the store, and it was Spider-Punk, my absolute favourite costume from the first Spider-Man game on the PlayStation 4. I do not have the greatest knowledge of the Spider-Man comics, but this was the costume I always used in that Spider-Man game, and this figure for me, if I can get it cheap in the future, is a must-have. Now these are super cool and stuff, and I never knew I needed these Warhammer 40,000 Dark Tide figures. Like, these are just basically giant miniatures from the Warhammer 40,000 universe and from the Dark Tide game, painted and put into figure form, and these were super cool and actually a pretty decent price. The basement of Forbidden Planet was absolutely rammed. Rammed with people, even more than upstairs, and also rammed with tons and tons of books. We're talking comic books, graphic novels, art books, and I managed to add so many books to my wish list down here. Books I've never seen before. Some of these art books were absolutely incredible, like the Horizon Zero Dawn one. You can see this place is absolutely full. It was so hard to get footage to kind of show how big it was down here and how much incredible stuff there was. And while some of these books are quite expensive, they are large, hardback, lovingly printed books. There is some absolute bargains to be had in here, and I just started grabbing at this point. Like, I saw the red sales sticker and it was like a shark seeing blood. We're going to take it back to the games room, and I'm going to show you some of the game books I picked up down here, and trust me, I struggled my way home on the tube after this. I picked up so many of these hardback books because I cannot believe how cheap these were. And here's the thing, yes, a lot of these are available online, but because I picked them up in person, I did not have to pay postage. And I picked up some absolutely amazing bits for the collection. If you are ever in London, definitely take a trip to Forbidden Planet. It was super busy, but super worth it. Now, back to the games room for them pickups. Here we are then, back in the games room then, and I am amazed how busy it was in Forbidden Planet. It doesn't do it justice in the video. It was absolutely packed, and being from Norwich, it's very quiet around here, and it was a bit of a shock to the system, but we still managed to get some awesome pickups. It goes to show, even if there's absolutely tons of charity shops, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to find anything. And the only thing I found in those countless charity shops in Huntington was this copy of the Transformers Season 1 Classic Animated Series. This is brand new and sealed, but I will probably just wait till a Sunday morning when I'm ready to watch this and just open it up and pop it in my DVD player. This is the exact kind of cartoon I love to find in the charity shops. The absolute classic cartoons from my childhood that just give you that warmth of nostalgia. And a lot of things like Transformers aren't on a lot of the streaming websites. Being able to pick this up in charity shops cheap is a real godsend. Our next stop was the game store in Huntington, and it is kind of a shame there's less and less of these standalone game stores in the UK. Like, so many of them are in either John Lewis stores or in Sports Direct stores. I just think it waters down the experience so much more. I know it's a big corporate company, but still a shame to see one less game store on the high street. So hopefully, I have heard rumours that they are going to be opening more of these standalone stores up in the future, and I really hope they do. But for me, one of the absolute best things about the game stores is going in there and doing the 3 for 2. Even if it doesn't have to break the bank, I think the person behind the counter even said to me that it was the last of the big spenders. So I managed to get 3 Xbox One games for £5.98. So first off, we have this game, On Rush. And if you have not played this before, it's kind of like MotorStorm meets Burnout. It's crazy racing destructibility. It looks really, really good fun. I've had my eyes on this one for quite a long while, and for $2.99, you can't really go wrong. So this game was $2.99. Next up, we have 2 of these games were randomly from Kickstarter. So the first one is Torment, Tides of Numeria or something. So this is the #1 most funded RPG on Kickstarter. So I'm presuming this must be quite a good game. It kind of, by the looks of it, it reminds you of kind of the old Baldur's Gate kind of games. And if it's anything like that, then that is an absolute win. And this was the cheapest out of the 3. So this game was free at $1.99. I just think it's crazy, and it's a fantastic time to build your Xbox One collection because the prices are so incredibly low. And the last game is a game I have held off buying for a long while because, to be honest, I've heard nothing but bad things. But for $2.99 or £3 something, whatever, like half of essentially $5.98 is, we have Mighty Number 9. Now again, I think this was a Kickstarter from the people who made the Mega Man series, and I've kind of not jumped in and taken a risk on this one, but for $2.99 as part of a free for $5.98, this is the kind of game I would take a risk on. But let me know in the comments down below if you've played Mighty Number 9. Love it or hate it then, I think the 3 for 2 is one of the best offers on pre-used video games on the market at the moment. But let me know in the comments down below, what are the best free games you have got for the price of 2 at your local game store or online? When I was in Forbidden Planet, I take absolutely no shame in admitting I absolutely raided the sales section. That's because some of these books are an absolute bargain. Don't get me wrong, I could have spent a small fortune in there, but I was on a bit of a budget. I wanted to grab as many of these awesome art books as I can as possible, just to save on the postage. So a lot of these prices are probably the same online, but of course it's much cheaper to get them in person. So first off, for the price of $1.99, we have the comic adaptation of Resistance. Now this was an absolutely fantastic game back on the PlayStation 3. Another franchise which I think that Sony need to bring back from the dead, and for $1.99 I'm really looking forward to reading this comic adaptation of that amazing video game. Next up we have an Assassin's Creed graphic novel. This was 99p. This one is still really expensive on Amazon, and to be able to pick this up for 99p is again a bargain. Recommended retail $8.99, now 99p. At this point, I seriously think Forbidden Planet are essentially given these away, and this is part of a series, but it's probably a good way for me to get into another comic book series to read. Next up, we do have a bit of a fail. You may be thinking, why is this Tomb Raider art book a fail at $4.99? Well, if you see one of my recent game pickup videos, you'll see I actually bought this off the internet, off Forbidden Planet, so I picked it up in person again. But if anyone out there is looking for a copy of Tomb Raider, Shadow of the Tomb Raider official art book for cheap, let me know, let's do a trade. But when it comes to art books, it was not all fails. I managed to pick up some absolute bargains. And believe me, when I was trying to walk these home on the tube, I was like this with bags either side. It was super heavy, but the struggle is real, but it was worth it. So these books are going to go down in price as we go through. So we're starting off with The Art of Thief, which was just £4.99. An absolute bargain. This was a $29.99 book at one point. It's now £4, but it goes lower than that. So we also have The Art of Watch Dogs, which I really enjoyed this game, and I kind of like the kind of horrible apocalyptic kind of future of it, so I really wanted to pick up this art book as well. So that one was as well $4.99. And another one, The Art of Evolve. Again, not the most successful game of all time, but just check out the back of this book. It's going to have some super cool artwork in there. This was $24.99 down to $4.99. This is where we start to get a little bit cheaper. The Art of Assassin's Creed Unity, £2.99, recommended retail of £30. Some of these books are just absolute bargains, and it gets cheaper. So next we have The Art of Fable Legends for just $1.99. Now, I don't think I ever played Fable Legends, but for $1.99 for a book from like one of the most iconic series on the Xbox, it's again an absolute bargain. But nothing compares to this cheapest book. So this is Assassin's Creed Into the Animus, the art of the film. This was 99p. This is a heavy hardback art book of a massive franchise, and it just goes to show there is some absolute bargains to be had, both online and especially in store at Forbidden Planet. So if you have a store local to you, go in and let me know in the comments down below what absolute bargains you can find. I have been an avid collector of strategy guides and art books for years, but it does seem this is becoming somewhat of a dying art form, for lack of a better term. So when I do see these books, I will grab them, but I'm not sure what the future holds for art book and strategy guide collectors, unfortunately. There we have it then, folks. There's another episode of Live Game Hunting. And if you enjoyed this episode, stay tuned for next week's episode, Saturday live at 5, when I'll be once again visiting central London, as I was there for the entire weekend. And I wanted to see how many CX stores I could hit up in one weekend. So stay tuned for next week's episode of The Crazy World of CX. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe, and as always, keep playing the game. See you all soon.